Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Seymour-Ells, and I serve as a clerk on the Board of Trustees here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. I want to welcome everyone to our open and inclusive virtual community this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning. We pledge to support one another as we walk these paths and through the challenges that lay ahead. We are so glad you were able to find us and join us for our live stream services today. As you are likely aware, all church services and necessary meetings will be held virtually until further notice. It is our hope to reinstate live services as soon as the CDC and state authorities let us know it is safe to do so. We are committed to doing our best to navigating these changes with you and look forward to sharing real space with you again soon. Please check the church website at dupageuuchurch.org for updates. If you search under DuPage UU Church on Facebook, you will find a number of ways to be in community with us as well.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Myriam Renaud, this congregation's community minister. I'm pre-recording my contributions to the Mother's Day service on Friday afternoon from the comfort of my living room, so you get to see a little bit of where I live here in Chicago's Lincoln Park. Let us begin. As we pause this hour, as we focus these few minutes, may we find calm among the personal turmoil we may be in. May we seek forgiveness for harsh words uttered or healing words left unsaid. May each of us find strength to endure difficulty. May we find acceptance of those we may not understand. And as the spring becomes more glorious with each passing day, may we be aware of each and every miracle around us and be glad. On this day, when our culture prompts us to remember those who gave us life and nurtured our early years, let us give deep thanks for each person, female or male, family or friend, who loved and guided us to be who we are today. Help us find ways to express that love in words and in the ongoing integrity of our lives. And let us be friends and supporters to each other in this uncertain venture that is our shared life together. And now Kelley will light our chalice. Each morning, we hold out our chalice of being to be filled with the graces of life which abound, air to breathe, food to eat, companions to love, beauty to behold, art to cherish, causes to serve. They come in ritual procession, these gifts of life. Whether we deserve them or not, we cannot know or say. They are poured out. Ours is the task of holding steady the chalice of being.
I invite you to sing Wake Now My Senses, number 298 in the Gray Hymnal, verses 1 through 3.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
I invite you to join me in saying the affirmation of this church. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
It is time to gather, and our theme this month is thresholds. And today our story crosses a vast threshold as we honor our mothers. Our story is Mars Needs Moms by Berkeley Breathed. Now, parents and adults may recall Berkeley as the creator and artist for the Bloom County comic strip, with the lovable and irreverent character Opus the Penguin. Mothers. Milo often wondered what was so special about them. Anyone could see that they were giant, summer-stealing, child-working, perfumey garden goblins. There was hardly much special about that. Mothers were also bellowing broccoli bullies and carrot-cuddling cuckoos. Nothing very special about that, thought Milo. Mothers were slave-driving, trash-mashing, rubbish-odor ogres. Nothing special about that. And mothers were thundering, humorless tyrants. This afternoon, Milo's mother missed what was funny about sister tinting. "Up to bed now," she thundered. "Tyrant," barked Milo. "No supper," said his mother. As she left his room, Milo yelled, "I sure don't see what's so special about mothers." She paused when he said this, and then closed the door very, very slowly. Exhausted from his fit, Milo fell very, very asleep. Milo slept so deeply that he never heard the distant roar of rocket engines in the night sky beyond his window. He never saw the tongue of orange flames light up the nearby hills. The spaceship landed just outside of town. They'd arrived. But who? Martian raiders. Worse, Martian raiders with a big net. And they climbed down from their starship and gazed over the town below, looking for the most marvelous treasure. Treasure that could never, ever be found on Mars. A treasure called moms. Ooh, they thought, to nab just one of those. Any mom would do. They don't have mothers on Mars, you know. Martians grow motherless from the ground like potatoes. But the raiders had some early mom nabbing trouble. Bolder action would be needed. Milo awoke to the strange sounds down the hall. He peeked around the door to see his mother being carried past the bathroom by 3 Martians the color of jelly beans. That, he thought, is something you don't see every day. Milo chased the Martian raiders and their now awake prize out of the house, and down the streets, and into the hills, and up to the spaceship, which roared into the night sky. Milo suddenly wondered why he would want to be dangling miles above Earth, chasing his carrot-cuddling mother. He decided he'd figure that out later. Milo found himself locked in the bottom of the spaceship, so he put on a spare space helmet and curled up in a corner, trying to stay warm. He slept as the ship sped toward the distant red planet. Milo awoke to find the ship still and quiet. The door was open, and suddenly he knew why Mars so badly wanted mothers. They needed driving to soccer and a ballet and to play dates, parks and pizzas, plus cooking and cleaning and dressing and packing lunches and bandaging boo-boos. They'd seen it in their telescopes. It was obvious. Mars needs moms. How perfectly, completely sensible of them, thought Milo. And he decided to go tell them just that. But he tripped. Down, down, down he went, landing very hard, but in one piece. His helmet, not so much. Milo gasped and choked. As anyone knows, breathing Martian air is like breathing mustard. He sucked it in and instantly grew weak and dizzy, and things began to go dark. Milo was fading. He barely sensed someone approaching. And he barely sensed the gentle hands place her own helmet over his head. Milo opened his eyes, and for the first time, he saw neither a broccoli bully nor a slave-driving garden ogre. He didn't see a tyrant or a dictator or a weary driver to soccer games. Suddenly, he knew what was special about mothers. She looked at him, smiling, and said, "I'll love you to the ends of the universe." And then she breathed in the terrible air, closed her eyes, and leaned on Milo, growing very still. The Martians watched, unmoving, confused. "Help her," he yelled angrily. Then he added, "She's my mother." Finally, the mighty mom nabbers of Mars understood. Their wonderful telescopes had seen many things about mothers down on Earth, but like certain boys, they'd missed the best part. The Martians quickly fetched another helmet. They helped carry Milo and his mom aboard the ship, which lifted off for the long journey home. Her eyes remained closed as they soared through the stars. Milo would stay curled close to her all night. And he would be there when she woke up in the morning. The end. So don't be discouraged if mom seems like a broccoli bully or trash-mashing rubbish ogre. She is your mom, and she will love you to the ends of the universe. Have a happy Mother's Day.
Two Simple Words by Abigail Wortman of West Long Branch, New Jersey. On the first day of first grade, I stood by the front door with butterflies in my stomach. I voiced my biggest concern to my mother. How will I make friends? Crouching in front of me, she handed me advice I carry with me to this day. Be Switzerland. Be friends with everyone. Treat everyone equally and fairly. For all of my 20 years, I have lived by these words. Soon I will graduate and become a part of the real world. And on that first day, nervously facing new responsibilities, I know I will whisper 2 words to myself. Be Switzerland. Next up, a short video about the history of Mother's Day.
On the second Sunday in May, we honor our mothers on Mother's Day. Where did this tradition come from? How long has it been around? In 1908, Anna Jarvis decided to hold a memorial for her mother, Anne Reeves Jarvis. Anna's mother had been a peace activist during the Civil War and had cared for the wounded on both sides of the fighting. West Virginia, Jarvis's home state, became the first state to recognize a day to honor mothers in 1910. In just a few years, several more states had added Mother's Day to their list of holidays. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation creating Mother's Day as a national holiday. It would be celebrated on the second Monday of May each year. The holiday caught on quickly, and in no time at all, it was being celebrated nationwide. By the 1920s, Mother's Day had taken on a similar appearance to the holiday we know today, with manufactured greeting cards and gifts of flowers or candy. Today, more greeting cards are sold for Mother's Day than any other holiday. More than 150 million Mother's Day cards are purchased annually in the United States, totaling more than $650 million a year. Additionally, more than $2 billion worth of flowers are purchased in the United States. The flower that has become most associated with Mother's Day is the carnation. White carnations represent a mother who has passed on, while red carnations represent mothers who are still alive. Roses, daffodils, and tulips are also popular. Church attendance has also become a major part of the Mother's Day tradition. Church attendance on Mother's Day ranks third behind only Christmas and Easter services. Taking mom out to dinner is another popular Mother's Day activity. Mother's Day is the single most popular day of the year for families to go out to eat. The average American spends about $120 a year on Mother's Day. Collectively, Americans spend more than $14 billion honoring their mothers. More than 80 nations currently recognize Mother's Day on the second Sunday in May. However, this is certainly not the only day in which mothers are honored. 19 nations celebrate Mother's Day on March 21st. In 16 other nations, the holiday is on March 8th. This day is also known as International Women's Day. Other countries have their own days. For example, in Thailand, Mother's Day is August 12th, and in Argentina, the holiday is the third Sunday in October. In fact, during every month of the year, except for September, Mother's Day is being celebrated somewhere in the world.
The Hardest Choice by Andrea Cortinas of El Paso, Texas. 35 years ago, when my mom was 22, she became a widow and a mother within the same month. The life she had imagined was stolen in a heartbeat. She tried to move on, but she was lost. She gave me to my father's family to be raised in the United States. Some call her weak, others call her selfish. I could be mad or bitter. Instead, I'm grateful for the life I have, and to a mother who sacrificed our relationship to give me a chance at a better life. She is courageous. She is my mother. And now I would like to share a brief video of several children, all from different family circumstances, saying thank you to their mothers.
You're getting all teary-eyed for making me all teary-eyed. Dear Mama.
Dear Mom,
Hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
for all you are and all you do, I love you.
You've been by my side since the beginning, making me see you as so much more than my mom.
14 years ago, you were taken by a cancerous disease that also took you from your husband and your 5 children.
You are my rock and one of the strongest women I know.
But you have shown me what true strength looks like.
But from a year ago that I became a mom, I totally appreciate what you did for me a lot more.
When I got sick, you dropped everything just to ensure I come out of this happy and healthy.
I thank you for putting food on the table, a roof over my head, and clothes on my back.
Although I don't have a lot of memories with you, I enjoy listening and recreating those memories with my older siblings.
The way you carry yourself as an Indigenous woman shows me what the definition of beauty is.
You were there for me when I was ready to give up and call it quits.
Even though you're watching over us, we were all doing well, and you don't have to worry about us.
Thank you for always having my back, being a shoulder to cry on and my cheerleader, and constantly being in my corner.
And I will always need you to be in my side as a model of a lovely, caring, patient, honest person, and a great wife, and of course the best mom that I could ever have.
Even now, as I write this, I'm looking back at all those times and wondering what I would have done without you.
Thank you for helping me aspire to be the best me I can be. And even though we have our ups and downs more than we like, I am proud to call you my mother.
I would like to thank the Creator for choosing you to be my mother, and for all the things you have done to make me a strong, beautiful, outgoing, and amazing educator that I am today.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Love, Brianna. You are still present in our hearts. Love from your daughter, Kayla.
Love your daughter, Lorelai Chavez.
Thank you.
Oh my God, that was beautiful. I love you.
I love you. Thank you. I love you so very much.
Please join us now in singing hymn number 409 in the gray hymnal, Sleep, My Child.
Sleep, my child, and peace attend you all through the night. I who love you shall be near you all through the night. Soft the drowsy hours are creeping, hill and vale and slumber sleeping. I, my loving vigil keeping all through the night. Mother, I can feel you near me all through the night. Father, I know you can hear me all through the night. And when I am your age nearly, still I will remember clearly how you sang and held me dearly all through the night. While the moon her watch is keeping all through the night, while one half the world is sleeping all through the night, even when the sun comes stealing, visions of the day revealing, breathes a pure and holy feeling all through the night.
On this Mother's Day, in the midst of a global health crisis, let us pause to acknowledge how joy and sorrow, celebration and concern, how they can coexist on this day and every day of our lives. Mother's Day is a day of joy, and it can also be a day of sorrow or regret or grief. It may seem impossible for all of these emotions, all of these experiences to exist in one world at once, let alone in one person at once, and yet they always have and always will. While I read the following prayer, let us be together in spirit, if not in body, and remember our deep connections to each other in our joys and in our sorrows. Help us to hold the mystery, by Kelley. Spirit of life and death, thou who art as present to us in our suffering as in our well-being, abide with us in this permeable time between dusk and dark. Soothe the secret pains we carry. Bless us with the courage to move toward our grief, and not away. When all is hidden, when we find ourselves moving among the shadows, when we do not know the way, quiet our hearts, still our restlessness. Help us to embrace the unknown, to hold the mystery, and to let ourselves be held by it. For thou art the great hiddenness, and yet we know that our breath is not so close to us as thy presence. Abide with us, O Spirit of compassion, as the power of healing, the assurance of peace, the love that will not let us go. And now let us pause for a moment and hold our joys and concerns in our hearts, or speak them aloud in our own homes, knowing that we carry each other's hearts on this journey. Thank you, and blessed be. As we move toward the offertory for the support of this church on this Mother's Day, I offer this blessing by Linda Susan Ulrich, entitled, For All the Mothers. For all the mothers and mother figures, the grandmothers, aunts, and extended family members who mother, the soon-to-be mothers, the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, the it's complicated mothers, the birth mothers, foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers, the used-to-be dad mothers, and the more than one mom mothers, the single mothers, separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers, the grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the great mother, you are held and beloved. The offering for the good of this church and its works will now be given and gratefully received.
Hi, I'm Alex Mirabali, and I'm going to talk about my mom. I started my 6th grade year looking forward to playing oboe and doing extracurriculars and was overall excited for middle school. About halfway through the year, I started withdrawing from everything, and the only thing I didn't stop was oboe, since my mom wouldn't let me stop until at least the end of the school year, even though I could drop band at any time, and I argued with her about this a lot, but she made me keep the same stance and wouldn't let me quit. I'm very glad that my mom made me keep playing, since now, being in high school, band is one of my favorite classes, and I've met most of my friends through band, and I would have missed out on a lot of things if my mom let me quit. I'm very glad that she's also done a lot with me to encourage me playing more and trying extracurricular band activities like marching band. She's also been really supportive of me doing these things and has done everything she can to help me and encourage me to keep playing oboe, even though at the time I was upset and mad with her at my mom for making me keep playing. I was trying my best to avoid doing band and practicing, but by the end of the year I was excited to keep playing and looking forward to playing the next year. She's also done a lot to encourage me with sticking with things until I am done with them to see if I really like them. My mom has also done this with basic classes in school and helped me become a hard worker by making me stick with things and trying my best and doing more than the bare minimum. She has done a lot for me and makes me excited that my brothers are starting instruments next year, since I know how fun playing an instrument is. And I would not have known that if my mom let me quit in 6th grade. She also taught me that sometimes the best thing for me isn't always the way I want things to go, and that she always has my best interests in mind. This has allowed me to get more help from her, since I know she will do her best to help me and teach me everything I need to know. I am very glad she put up with me arguing with her and getting mad at her, since if she didn't, I would have missed out on how fun an instrument really is and not have learned many lessons from her.
My name is Karen, daughter of Jan, daughter of Anne, daughter of Annuncia Rosie, whose own mother sent her from a small mountain town in Italy as a teenager to America, where she thought she'd have a chance to live out her dreams and have a better life. My only real memories of Annuncia Rosie include her standing at her kitchen stove, stirring what seemed to be an unending pot of soup, and people wandering through the kitchen, her family and community members, and she was forever feeding them. And I remember thinking, I am not going to be tied to a stove. That is not going to be me. She's spending her whole life taking care of other people. Her daughter, my grandmother, Anne, widely considered to be the most beautiful of the Rosie daughters, and potentially one of the most beautiful in the city of Logansport, Indiana, was strongly encouraged during the Great Depression to marry my grandfather, a successful business owner, 15 years her senior, who may not have been her first choice. However, my strongest memory of her is of her working incredibly hard to make the best life she could with this man. I can remember staying with her over spring break and watching her scrub the kitchen floor on her hands and knees every single morning, getting into the cracks, because she felt like doing the best job she could was important. And I remember thinking, I am never doing that. I've got a mop. Her daughter was my mother, Jan. Jan was the first woman in her family to go to college. And I watched my mother throughout her life take a look at what she and her family needed and pivot. She changed careers multiple times. She went back to school, and she reinvented herself over and over to give her daughters the best shot at having their best life. And as you can imagine, I thought, I'm going to find my passion and stick with it. I'm not going to keep changing to serve the needs of other people. And this is what I thought when I was 20 years old, and probably still when I was 30 years old. And I'm quite a bit older now. And as a friend said to me only last week, you certainly see things from a different perspective with age. Last week, I found myself scrubbing my kitchen floor on my hands and knees, getting in all the corners and cracks before showing our house to prospective buyers. I have re-careered several times in the past 10 years. I went back to college, I changed my job, and only last year I changed the setting I was working in, because I really feel like it gives my children the best shot at living their dreams. I have made countless pots of soup, and most of you have probably eaten them. Because what I realized is you aren't necessarily making that to feed them. You are doing this as a way of showing your love for your family and for your community. And 2 years ago, I not only let my son go across the country, knowing I would rarely, if ever, see him for long periods of time, I got in the car and I drove him. And I left him there, alone, which was scary. So on this Mother's Day, I want to say thank you to my mom for making me understand that change can be good, and to my grandma for raising that strong daughter and showing me what hard work looks like, and to Annuncia Rosie for teaching me about the different ways people demonstrate love, but mostly to my great-great-grandmother back in Italy, who had the courage to send her daughter away. Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, I am grateful to have been loved and to be loved now and to be able to love, because that liberates. Love liberates. It doesn't just hold. That's ego. Love liberates. When my son was born, I was 17. My mother had a huge house, 14-room house. At 17, I went to her and said, I'm leaving. She asked me, you're leaving my house? And she had live-in help. I said, yes. I found a job, and I've got a room with cooking privileges down the hall, and the landlady will be the babysitter. She asked me, you're leaving my house? I said, yes, ma'am. And you're taking the baby? I said, yes. She said, all right, remember this. When you step over my door sill, you've been raised. You know the difference between right and wrong. Do right. Don't let anybody raise you and make you change. And remember this, you can always come home. I went home every time life slammed me down and made me call it uncle. I went home with my baby. My mother never once acted as I told you so. She said, oh, baby's home. Oh, my darling, Mama's gonna cook you something. Mother's gonna make this for you. Love. She liberated me to life. She continued to do that. When my son may have been 5 years old. My mother would pick him up all the time and feed him. And I went to her once a month, and she would cook for me. So one day I went to her house, and she'd cooked red rice, which I loved. After we finished eating, we walked down the hill, and she started across the street. She said, "Wait a minute, baby." I was 22 years old. She said, "Wait a minute, baby. You know, I think you're the greatest woman I've ever met." She said, "Mary McLeod Bethune, Eleanor Roosevelt, and my mother, you're in that category." Then she said, "Give me a kiss." I gave her a kiss, and I got onto the streetcar. I can remember the way the sun fell on the slats of the wooden seats. I sat there and I thought about her. I thought, suppose she's right. She's intelligent. And she says she's too mean to lie. So suppose I am going to be somebody. She released me. She freed me to say I may have something in me that would be of value. Maybe not just to me. See? That's love. And when she was in her final sickness, I went out to San Francisco. And the doctor said she had three weeks to live. I asked her, "Would you come to North Carolina?" She said yes. She had emphysema and lung cancer. I brought her to my home. She lived for 1.5 years. And when she was finally, in extremis, she was on oxygen and fighting cancer for her life. And I remembered her liberating me. And I said, I hope I'll be able to liberate her. She deserved that from me. She deserved a great daughter, and she got one. So in her last days, I said, now, I understand that some people need permission to go. As I understand it, you may have done what God put you here to do. You were a great worker. You must have been a great lover, because a lot of men, and if I'm not wrong, maybe a couple of women, risk their lives to love you. You were a piss-poor mother of small children, but you were a great, great mother of young adults. And if you need permission to go, I liberate you. I went back to my house, and something said, go back. I was in my pajamas. I jumped in my car and ran, and the nurse said, she's just gone. You see, love liberates. It doesn't bind. Love says, I love you. I love you if you're in China. I love you if you're across town. I love you if you're in Harlem. I love you. I would like to be near you. I'd like to have your arms around me. I'd like to hear your voice in my ear. But that's not possible now, so I love you. Go.
When someone mentions their mother to me, all kinds of images of mother come to mind. Images shaped by, in my case, two cultures, French and American. The images that come to mind are usually idealized images of the mom we see in children's books. Kind, gentle, sweet-natured, wise, patient, understanding, all sweetness and light. These are the moms who invariably show up in children's books. I don't believe I've actually ever met a mother who fit this description to a T. I want to acknowledge that most mothers are infinitely more complicated, sweet and sour, light and shadow. Obviously a grown-up myself, long into adulthood, I have to admit that my mother and I sometimes have a rather difficult relationship, though I very much value the fact that of all the people in the world, she is the one who is always interested in what I'm doing and how I'm doing. Today, Mother's Day, reminds me to hit the pause button and reflect on that complex person I call Mom or Maman. I'm grateful for this pause button. My mother's the woman who raised me, the same woman who gave birth to me. Born and raised in France, my mother married my American father when she was just 19. The two immediately moved to the United States, and I was born just a month after my mom turned 20. By the time she was 23, she had 3 children. She arrived in the U.S. without a word of English. Barely an adult herself, she was charged with raising us kids in an unfamiliar environment and unfamiliar culture, far from her family and friends, with a husband who was focused on his academic studies and often absent in spirit, and with a mother-in-law who was disappointed that her beloved son had chosen a French Catholic wife instead of an American Jewish one. And I did not make things easier for her. I'm told that I adored my father above all else, and I would scream if my mother tried to pick me up. Thinking about my mother's early years of motherhood takes my breath away. I really don't know how she survived. I'm not sure I would have. So on Mother's Day, I'm invited to focus on her best qualities and my best memories of her. So today, for example, I celebrate my mother's courage in making a life for herself in a foreign country. I celebrate how tough she was, doing her best to take care of my father and 3 children. However, I want to acknowledge that for some of you, this may not be a day of straightforward celebration. You might have 2 mothers. Your mother might have carried you in her womb, but not be your biological mother. Your mother might be your adoptive mother. Your mother might have abandoned you. Your mother might have died during your birth. Your mother might have transitioned and is a man. Your mother might be your father or fathers. Your mother may not have wanted you. Your mother might not have been tender or nurturing. At its glorious best, as Maya Angelou reminds us, love liberates. Perhaps the love that liberates you comes from someone who is not your mother. My hope for you is that today you can participate in some way in the invitation to reflect on the person whom you consider your mother or mothers, to see them as they are and to celebrate the best in them. I would now like to take a few minutes to consider the relationship between the idea of motherhood, womanhood, and the divine feminine. The Australian Aboriginal tradition tells us, the earth is female. She gave birth to all the original creative beings. She is the initial mother, and by virtue of being original, is now and forever the mother of everything. Though the divine feminine appears in various guises throughout history and throughout the world, I'm going to focus on Europe, mostly because I came across a really terrific book on this subject. It's Professor Sharon Pace McLeod's The Divine Feminine in Ancient Europe. Perhaps not surprisingly, Professor McLeod writes that during the Paleolithic era, indigenous cultures included female spiritual beings in their religious practice and understanding. These cultures' spiritual traditions, of which female spiritual beings were important components, were quite varied and sophisticated. Along with deities, male deities, and divine figures, they were integral parts of entire systems of belief and practice. Throughout Europe, 250 ancient female statuettes and figurines have been discovered. They're generally palm-sized and have pointed legs with no feet, so they could be planted in the ground and stay upright. I don't know about you, but the images of female spiritual beings that most naturally come to my mind are those of the earth goddess or the mother goddess. However, even in Paleolithic times, female spiritual beings were never limited to the earth goddess or the mother goddess. They were much more complex. The statuettes that were discovered took the form not only of goddesses, but also of guardians, patrons, of protectors of a particular place, or of a geographic feature, or of a person, lineage, nation, culture, or occupation. They also took the form of ancestral figures. All in all, female spiritual beings are associated with, yes, life and death and fertility, but also with destruction, prosperity, magic, wisdom, knowledge, healing, battle, prophecy, leadership, and a whole host of other social and spiritual concepts. Even in the ancient world, societies recognized and lifted up the importance of what we recognize today. Women are associated with childbearing and child rearing, yes, but also with a whole host of other important social and spiritual roles. In Eastern Europe, the statuettes were found in open-air sites, which suggests that they played a role in the home and probably symbolized abundance, fertility, protection, food supplies, the hearth, children, the ancestors, or protection in childbirth. In Western Europe, they were found in caves and rock shelters, which suggests that they were associated with religious activities, initiation rites, seasonal ceremonies, hunting rituals, creating or maintaining sacred space, or honoring spirits or deities. Some statuettes have been both female and male, have had both of these elements, male and female, perhaps representing sacred androgyny. A study on the age and body types represented by the female figurines shows that 23% appear to be pre-reproductive with a firm, slender body and flat stomach. Only 17% were of reproductive age, probably pregnant, with a fleshy body and large stomach. 38% were middle-aged or heavy, but not necessarily pregnant, and 22% were elderly or post-reproductive with a sagging body. What is clear from the study is that these little statues reflect a wide variety of ages and body types and represent and honor women throughout their life cycle. None of these statues, not a single one, is shown carrying or nursing children. Only one depicts a woman in childbirth. Rather than strictly associating womanhood with fertility or maternity, they appear to be communicating something more holistic about womanhood. The figurines have a wide variety of attributes associated with women's energies, with their wisdom, their power, and their abilities. Whether they represented religious ideas, marked the dwelling place of spirits or ancestors, or represented deities or female spirits, they were clearly sacred. Regardless of the interpretation of the female symbolic that might apply to the setting where they were found, whether cave or open air site, most, if not all, of these ancient figurines can be said to represent something sacred to the lives of the people who created and used them. In her book about these figurines, Sharon Pace McLeod cautions against focusing on just one or two possible meanings of Paleolithic female figurines. She might just as easily caution us contemporary people against focusing on just one or two possible meanings of womanhood. By narrowing the options, Professor McLeod writes, we run the risk of misinterpreting Paleolithic female figurines, as well as missing much of the complexity and the social and spiritual traditions of the people who made them. It is much more exciting and rewarding to broaden the options and grant that these female images represented a wide variety of possibilities. Likewise, today, it is infinitely more exciting and rewarding to broaden the options and grant that womanhood represents a wide variety of possibilities, motherhood included, but certainly not limited to it. Rather than suggest that ancient people were focused on the polarizing concept of male versus female, Professor McLeod explains that the Paleolithic female figurines indicate an awareness of the varying attributes, roles, and functions that each person played in their social group throughout their lifetime. We can probably all agree on the importance of cultivating the same kind of awareness today. So may we also, on Mother's Day, acknowledge and celebrate a wide variety of meanings of woman and mother. Today, may we honor womanhood and motherhood. Today, may we celebrate the best in our own mothers. Today, may we, in the tradition of ancient European societies, embrace and honor a wide and holistic view of womanhood, of women's wisdom, power, and abilities. I wish you all a happy Mother's Day.
Please join us in singing hymn number 91 in the Gray Hymnal, Mother of All. This flame, but not its spirit. May it warm and light our lives until we meet again. Blessed be, amen. and a peaceful Mother's Day to all.